Say It Skillfully is about being who you really are and saying what you think needs to be said, even at work. Whether you're part of a small project team or leading a giant company, the more you accept that you're part of the problem, the faster you can be part of the solution. Join Molly Chang today as together we break the silence and learn how to be happier, healthier, and more productive at work and in life.
Hello, Molly here. Welcome to Say It Skillfully, helping you find the words to create shared reality in a way that's true to yourself. Our first guest today is from the lovely Southern California, San Diego, perfect weather on the planet, and Linda. So Linda, thanks for getting up so early and joining me.
Thanks, Molly. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So I am really curious, what is top of mind for you?
Oh, thank you so much. This couldn't come at a better time. A little bit of a background on me is that I've actually been a remote worker for the past 21 years, believe it or not. I was VP of sales and led sales teams and marketing teams in my past. And then I had a child. And at that point, I also was laid off. So it was an opportunity to become a remote worker. So because I've been a remote worker for all these years, I feel in many ways like I need a little bit more guidance. I may have lost some mentors along the way in, being sort of cloistered at home. I've also capitalized on it and loved it and had the ability to travel. So it's all good. About 2.5 years ago, I met with a career coach and decided what direction I should take as I re-entered the job market as an actual employee for the first time. And I decided to pursue careers in sales with a particular industry, inside of a particular industry that I had worked in my whole career. It just seemed easy. And I wanted, for my first job back, I really wanted something in an industry that I understood well. So I opted for that, and I was presented with 2 job offers with 2 great companies that have been in the industry for a very long time. And I accepted one offer because the leader of the team was somebody extremely inspiring. Everyone who had ever worked for this gentleman said he was literally the best boss, the most inspiring guy that they'd ever worked for. So who wouldn't want that, right?
Totally.
So I took the position, and we were starting a new division, and I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So it was just perfect. It was just in my wheelhouse. I was so happy. Another gal and I started the division together, working under this gentleman. And we went along for a while, and it was difficult because we started the division about a week after COVID set in. So it was hard to start a new company given the environment that the world was in, right? But she and I worked in tandem, and then we expanded our team and hired a few more sales managers. And then the gentleman, the inspiring gentleman, the leader of our team, just resigned. He said he was going to retire and that he had handpicked his replacement. So that's where the problems began. He brought in this replacement who was a very nice person who had worked more as an administrative VP in the past. The other gal on our team, she and I were sort of like sisters building it together. She, from the first day we met, the first video call we had with this poor guy, she disliked him greatly. She felt he was uninspiring. She felt he wasn't the right person to lead the charge. He wasn't exciting. He wasn't someone that wowed anybody. And the biggest issue was he really didn't have contacts in our industry. He didn't know customers who loved him. And in sales, that's kind of what it's all about, right? It's all about the impression you make on people and the strength of your relationships. It's really all about relationships. And he seemed to be incapable of that. So she created, this other gal, she created a toxic environment with all of our involvement, right? We were all kind of trying to advise her on the side. And it was very difficult because many of our team meetings would explode with her going off on some kind of a rant about something, you name it, whatever it was. She would criticize him in front of our whole team, and it became very difficult. And we all felt very helpless. At the same time, she brought up good points. She wasn't wrong. She just had a really poor way of addressing it. a very negative way that shut everybody down. So then last Friday, she just sort of up and quit with no notice and just walked away. So it was an opportunity to really assess what had gone on. And our boss let Friday go by. He let the whole weekend go by. Monday morning started, and we were all wondering, are we ever going to meet to talk about what happened with this woman who was a very key part of our team? And I emailed him and called him early Monday morning. He didn't respond. And then about 5 to 10 minutes after my voicemail, meetings popped up on our calendar. And he decided he wanted to discuss and address it with the team. I think, I'm not sure if it was because of my outreach. It seemed the timing was such that probably, just to give you a feel for his, his skill set and his issues. Communicating is not his strong suit. To say the least.
Yeah, got that. Okay, so now what?
So we met last Monday, and we were able to air our feelings. We talked about how much it felt like a loss, and how also she created a toxic environment, and we were all kind of reeling. And we saw this as a new opportunity moving forward to make a difference, to kind of wedge into the market and get a little piece of the market and to continue on our mission to launch the new division. And he expressed vulnerability. He was very open, and he asked us for feedback. He said the woman who resigned apparently would be set off when I would report from management meetings. It seemed to set her off. That was a trigger for her. Is there something that I'm not doing? Is there something that I could be doing better? Molly, we were all silent. We were all silent. I very much regret it, because in that moment, he was asking for help. We just didn't know. We just couldn't find the words to express, and it's not our job, but it is our job to create a team environment where we feel safe to share our feelings and we feel safe to, giving feedback, right?
Yep.
And especially asking for help to create positive change so we can be effective. That's my biggest frustration is he's just really not effective. He's not inspiring, and we've been part of the problem. We realize that. But what can we do? So help.
Oh my God. So I can feel the what's the right word? The simmering, the low simmering going on and this tension. And then he asks for exactly what you want him to do. Right. So listeners, here he is. And you guys were
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So is it fair to say that a way I could think about this is, what can Linda do now?
Exactly. Where do I go from here?
Okay. So I love that you are realizing that it's not game over, meaning other people would just say, okay, head down. We're just stuck with this the rest of our lives, because you're not. And
Nope.
It's very clear that he extended the olive branch. I'm just going to make up a name. We'll just call him Tom. So, you could rally your office mates too, just to create solidarity and ensure that everyone's kind of reading it the same way you did, which is, we sort of blew it. And that's, I think, something to help, the rest of the team feel like that we have something that we need to do now. He did his part. We didn't do it. So there's an opportunity to do it as a team and say, I'm going to go to him. You could say this, I'm going to go to him. And I want to know, if we can, re-engineer that folks will speak up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just create as a leader for your group to help create space for folks to realize what's going on. And that's going to let you know, Linda, if your teammates are going to be willing to have the courage to speak up, and they may or they may not. So that's not for you to control, but I think that can be your ask. But let's control what you can control, which is, let's just say you can set up one-on-one time with Tom. And you might say, I was so proud of you, whatever your feelings were, right? Yeah. And just acknowledge him, and then say, I have to be really honest with you. I I had a frog in my throat. I didn't sleep for a week, whatever the impact was. Say, I let you down.
Mm-hmm.
I did not share with you what I think could be very helpful for you and for the team. And I own that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a small, you can think of that as an apology, but say, hey, look, I blew it. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity now.
Mm-hmm.
So in advance of that, I think you want to think about like, what are my key points that you want to communicate? And it's not 10, it's 3, right? So you might say there's 3 areas that I think would be most impactful. These are from my perspective, and I'm putting them out there and really happy to discuss them with you and in any way help you. So that's a little bit of the how you massage the intro. First, let me let me pause. How does that intro setup land?
I love that. And the reason we all met, of course, after. And I love that. And I did start that conversation, Molly. You'd be proud of me. The next day, we had a one-on-one that was pre-scheduled. So I took the opportunity to begin that one-on-one by bringing up his vulnerability and bringing up how impressed I was that he was vulnerable, that he asked for feedback. And, we paused there for a minute and a little chitter chatter, whatever. And then we launched into our agenda. So I had an opportunity and I didn't take it. It doesn't mean I can't restart that talk. But I feel like one thing that's missing that I didn't share is that he's not inspiring. His product demos are very challenged and not exciting. I don't know how to put into words that he's not exciting. He's not inspiring. And so when I met with the team to talk about why we were silent, everybody concurred. How you tell a guy who's leading a sales team that you don't want him in any of your meetings or product demos because he's a buzzkill. And I hate to be, I hate to use a stereotype like that, but that is the effect he'll have on any call.
Yep.
It's a tough one. It's a really challenging one. And I struggle even to find the words to share with you. I don't want to, obviously I can't ask the guy to have a personality transplant.
Right. Right. So here's the thing. Let's just cut to the chase on this because this is a tough one. I hear you. And you want to try to be part of the solution. So what I'm hearing is maybe he's not going to take the front of stage sales leader role that everyone would think of the front sales leader, but perhaps he can fill this role differently.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's the ask. So that's what you're thinking. You have to know what your outcome is. Your outcome is we want him to not be totally demoralized, right? And we want to be able to use, there are some strengths, right? He can be behind the scenes and that's great. And so that is something where I think at a one-on-one, and you've started to establish this, and you have to decide, Linda, how much you care, right? Because it comes down to that. And so it would be like, hey, Tom, I'm like 3 strikes, I'm out. I'm not going to be out. I'm coming back on this topic.
Yes.
And it's a really sensitive one for me. Okay. So he'll get that. I said, I want you to know that I want you to feel inspired. And I want you to feel good. And at the same time, I think this might be really hard news to hear. But if I were in your shoes, I would absolutely want someone to care enough to tell me. Okay. So this is how you word it. So sometimes salespeople, the sales leader is front and center in the product demos. And I'm going to be really forthright, and I'm not trying to be mean. Your demos are okay. They're not the best of our team, period. And I think you'd be doing the team a great service to let the team take the lead on the demos. You're cheering from the sidelines. And I think that is something that would help all of us feel better.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. That is so helpful. Yep, that is exactly what needs to be said.
Okay. Well, there is a recording, so you'll be able to replay the recording. And, as listeners know, the number one thing that impacts the communications is the me part. How do I show up? So if you're looking him in the eye with kindness and with compassion and with caring, but not soft pedaling, right?
No.
And so this is a win-win.
Yes.
And if he's, and they look, well, but that's not what a salesperson's supposed to do. Oh, I hear you. And we're a unique group of people here, Tom.
Mhm.
And so what we want to do is take most advantage of the assets everyone here has.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what leading is. Okay, this is very excited. I can't wait for you to have the conversation. So as we wrap here, Linda, I'm going to ask you, what is your top takeaway in all this?
My top takeaway is I can deliver the hard news, the truth. I can deliver my truth in a way that isn't mean, with kindness, with respect, and in a helpful manner to create a better outcome for our whole team, potentially, hopefully.
For sure. I am cheering for you. You absolutely know how to reach me. As soon as you have the chat, loop back, please, because I do want to hear how it goes. I'm very excited for you, and I want you to feel really great for being part of the solution, Linda, for yourself and your whole team, because this could really set you folks free and have a whole new trajectory going forward.
Thank you, Molly. You're amazing.
Back at you. Take good care. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Ciao. Okay, that's exciting. Okay, now we're coming back closer to my stomping ground in New York City, and I'm welcoming Ivan to the show. Ivan, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Hi, Molly. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate your making time out of, I'm sure, a very busy day. So, Ivan, what tough conversation or sensitive situation is on your mind?
Sure. Just want to make sure I thank you for the opportunity to be here and really share my experience in this tough conversation I have in mind or I had in the past, and learn how to say skillfully. So this was back when I was first transitioned to consulting, and on my first day at work as a consultant at a client site, the client asked me to join a meeting with very little notice. And there were two other colleagues on the call, and they were working with the client for some time. The client goes, Ivan, we're really unhappy with the quality of the work from these two individuals. Ivan, can you please address this? And otherwise we'll have to terminate the contract with you guys, with your firm as a whole. It was a shock to hear. And at the same time, obviously I may be seen, in this brief context as the saviors or some sort into like managing these two people, but in fact, I was not. So, just kind of coming into this picture with a very little context, I would love to hear your thoughts on how to navigate this situation.
Wow. Talk about, that is a shock. I'm a little shocked myself. Like, who does that? Okay. So let's talk with everyone knows here listening, the me, you framework. So the first thing is getting in good relationship within Ivan. So just share with us, you've got the shock. What was going on in your mind at that moment, if you can remember?
Yeah. So I think first of all, it was a new kind of dynamic for me, having a client that I need to be responsible for, as well as teammates, people whom I have never worked with or met before. And I actually need to learn from them because they've been in the client side. So I think the situation is very delicate in the sense that I need to make sure that I stay and build good relationship on both sides. And I need to make sure I cater and walk this fine line to maintain this business for the company. So I was immediately put on the spot, and I just need to make sure that I am handling it and making sure I assess the overall situation before I act. But at the same time, I have so little time and being put on the spot. So that was I would say one of the toughest conversation I had in situation throughout my career.
Wow. Okay. Well, here's a rule, just so the listeners know. What did you say, Ivan?
I think, it's a blur, but I think I blurred out basically, like some sort of delaying techniques. I was like, yeah, we hear your challenge. I would definitely catch up with the team and understand more about what the situation is before I get back. But at this moment, I couldn't really, say much in terms of how the quality was. So I would say like, it's an okay answer, but I don't feel like, first of all, it was strong enough to first build my presence, and make people feel like how I insert myself really strongly in the situation. And I was thinking, I was the first day I'm trying to navigate, so I also don't want to be the person like just start at the top. But I guess I was hoping, there were some better words and approach that I can build a much better, stronger presence on day one, especially in this kind of situation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we're going to find those words right now. So you kind of take a few breaths. I have to say this would be a genuine shocker. So I think it's great that folks are listening and they can be, I guess, prepared for something that I can't believe would have actually happened. I am a little bit like, wow. So let's just call the client Jake. And, I think the first thing, breathing. So as a general guiding principle, transparency is our friend. So you want to be transparent in a non-judging kind of way. So, hey, Jake, wow. First, I appreciate you're letting me know how you feel. It's a little bit surprising for me to hear, because if you're a little surprised, that's fair. That's part of the transparency. So today is my first day, transparency. I haven't had a chance yet to connect with my teammates, blank and blank. So that's a fact, blank. I want to take advantage of the time we have now, if that's okay, Jake. So Jake, for all of our benefit, would you share for us what it is that you're unhappy with? Pause. And if they vent, he could be very skillful, he could be very unskillful. And by the way, this is where a bit of compassion, you have to think, I can't even believe this person is doing this to us. So we could make them bad and evil, or we could say, Jake is having a very bad day. Who knows what happened for Jake that he's actually endeavoring to have this conversation with me this way, right? I mean, like, let's be honest. So you have to have compassion because we don't know what happened. So just see what he says. And if he says, hey, Jake, I know that we're in this together. We're here as you're our client, a valued client. We want you to be happy. I know that, Maria and Jose, whoever those folks are have been working very hard. I know, again, we haven't had a chance to meet, but I know that they've been trying to do the right thing. So there's obviously a disconnect. I'm going to do everything in my power to resolve this. And I'm sure that we can create a win-win situation. So again, positive intention. You haven't said you're going to do anything because you don't really know anything, right? But I'm here to make it work.
Exactly.
Right? And let Jake just share. Now, he may be very unskillful. Well, hey, thank you for sharing. I can hear your frustration. Work with the emotion as part of the reality and see if you can talk Jake off a cliff. Well, I don't really have time. Hey, Jake, I totally appreciate you're so busy. And that's in part why I want to push on this a bit, because it's very hard for us to work effectively for you if we don't have a shared understanding of what success looks like. Pause.
Perfect.
Okay. So pause. And then hopefully, Jake, what you might get is, I really apologize. This is coming out of left field. It's your first day for God, and so give Jake a chance to backpedal and realize that, maybe this was not exactly the best way to welcome our friend Ivan, who I want to help me do great work, right? To back him into a corner. So you're trying to create a little bit of space here. Now, if Jake goes there, which you would love, say, hey, Jake, what I'm hearing is X, Y, and Z. Did I hear you correctly? Right? You're giving me a chance to, now you're aligning. Are you hearing him? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, and I don't want to put my teammates on the spot, anything that you would like to share, you may have had a different experience. There may be information Jake isn't aware of. I know that Jake would want to know the full story. Again, you're assuming positive intent. You're giving them a chance to share their experience.
Wonderful.
Now, I'm just curious how that lands for you, and if you think that might have been an option for you back then.
No, I love really how it starts, because I think in this kind of situation, how you, especially at the beginning of your answer, really determines the way how it's going to go. And like the way you put it is just so grounded. and confident. At the same time, letting the transparency be the neutral sort of setting to align everybody's thoughts. I think that was really brilliant. So I love it. I love how, and I think I can apply that in various ways in any situations that may be related to this.
I love it. Okay. I am curious, just for our listeners' sake, were you folks able to turn around that client? When did you end up sticking with this client?
So that was the onset of COVID when I started the project.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting because, consulting, usually you travel. In this case, I only met the client once, and then we started into this remote work, new phase of work. In COVID, we heard a lot of clients cancel the projects, because of all the business challenges. We end up retaining the clients for 2 more years, at least before the relationship were continued until or even after I left. So I would say we turned it around.
Bravo. I love it. I'm not surprised. And I'm really glad. I wanted to have that so listeners knew there was a happy ending, if you will. So I'm curious because that was a previous job. Anything top of mind? Anything else that you'd like to unpack with me?
Sure. I'd say another, really something that I vivid in my mind is back in early in my career. When I started a few years in the financial industry, I worked at a company for a couple of years, and after some hard work, I was informed that I was promoted, which is an opportunity, really opportunity hard to come by with this team. It was made clear to me that it was just purely title promotion and no pay rate increase, which I was really happy with anyways. However, upon my first paycheck after the promotion, I noticed that I was getting paid overtime, but because with the title change, it's been putting more of a manager position, you're no longer entitled to overtime pay. So effectively, I'm getting a pay cut. So I needed to speak to my manager about this. And, this was earlier in my career, so I don't think I knew what I was doing. I was just, babbling, but how might we say skillfully so that I can rightfully advocate in a, very effective way for what I believe I'm entitled to.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, this is really great. And I'm just going to say this because this is what comes to my mind, which is, I get an increase in title. Great. So that's a new business card. Nothing is changing. My pay is not changing, but now I don't qualify for the overtime. So it looks like you're trying to save money by promoting me. Now, I'm not saying that that's their intent.
I don't think that was the intent. I think
right.
It was a side effect that was unexpected. Good. So I also feel it for them.
Yeah.
So that's what also makes it delicate because I don't want to ruin the relationship in any ways.
Of course, which is perfect. So that's really, really great. Genuinely, that was an unintended side effect. So let's say Tracy is the boss. Tracy, wow, so excited to have gotten the promotion. I know that those are not easy to come by, and I know it took a lot of support from you, and I thank you for that, right? Positive, you're acknowledging, positive. Interesting, something came across kind of shocking to me. I got my first paycheck back after the promotion, and I find that I had been getting paid overtime, and you can do a little quantitative analysis, X% of your salary, right? And the overtime is no longer in there, period. And you pause. Is that intended? No judgment. Is that intended? Now, Tracy might be like, oh my gosh, what? You didn't get your overtime? I didn't realize that. Then now we're in a whole different place versus, oh, well, Ivan, I forgot to mention that was going to happen. So
Right.
what we would prefer that the former was what happened, right? And then let's just say though that it didn't. She's like, well, oh, that's how it goes. And you're just like, oh. So you might say, so you were aware of this? See, it's just you're seeking first to understand, getting transparency. Yeah. I have to admit, I don't think you were trying to hide anything. I really would have appreciated knowing. I could imagine, Tracy, if you were in my shoes, you would want to have known too. Pause. Now you pause and you let Tracy think like, okay, wait a second. Promoting a guy and he's getting paid less. Like I would not be happy. So let's see if Tracy offers some solutions. And she's like, well, this is how the system works. Hey, no, I understand that. Let me just ask, and I'm not trying to make this personal, Tracy, at all. And I don't want to come across as not a team player, but I know you want to do the right thing. And I know that the firm would want people when they get promoted to feel really positive about it and not have an unintended negative consequence. Tracy will be with you. Say, okay, so how can we work this? Because I can imagine you would not want this to happen to you. And look from the looks on your face, Tracy, you don't think this is the right thing. What can we do to help raise this so that, we address it? And in the future, this doesn't happen to other folks who get promoted. So let me pause there. How's that landing?
I have to say, the way you put it, I think would have changed my dynamic. If I would have learned this earlier, that would change my dynamic with my manager and manager's manager, actually, who obviously was on top of this throughout that time. I would be, I think that would be a much less awkward conversation. I love it, and I think it just elevates you in. And I think the way you answer, and I think throughout some of the thoughts, is really just elevate yourself and not put yourself in the shoes of that particular scenario as being sort of the receiver, but really just have a overarching view of the thing itself, so that you can actually come from a very team focused and context. In different kind of perspective, and I think that really helps. I think in reality, how it turned out was like, I think I think I was still very polite, and we talk about like what can we do, but I just don't think it came through in such a elegant way that showcases that I also care for them. Because I think in this case, and especially when you get promoted, when you show to the management that you also care for how they would have need to manage this and how you would be willing to help them manage this, it goes a long way. So, I think you're spot on again.
So this is so great. And I love for listeners how you describe that, Ivan, is perfect. And I would just summarize it as serve the whole, right? So, and it takes, because in a moment like this, it's all about me. Ivan, am getting host, right? So it's very easy to stay low, right? It's totally, and that's normal, folks, totally normal. So it takes the intention to say, shh, let it go. Okay, how do I stay high? So for you, the you, me, you, we, the you is then the leaders and what serves them, because people are self-interested. So how do you really, in a genuine way, say, look, you wouldn't want this to happen to you. You wouldn't want to be thinking that this is what the firm is about, right? So that doesn't look good for them. So that's a driver for change. And at the highest level, all of you want the most amazing firm ever, because that just serves everybody. So exactly. If even a most junior person can come across in service to the whole of then it makes it easy for everyone to think about, well, what is right for the whole, and not an individual win or lose, but rather what serves us in aggregate. I love it. I love it. We talked about it a lot, Ivan, so I'm curious, if you step back, do you have a particular top takeaway from our chat?
Say exactly what you just say. I would repeat it, serve the whole. Just analyze it from a bigger picture, create win-win. That's what it is.
That's perfect. Just one more thing, because I am curious, in your work environment now, Ivan, and I really appreciate your interest and your recognition that how you actually say things makes a big difference. I'm just wondering, do you feel in your general work environment, people are very mindful that how they communicate makes a big difference?
Interesting you asked that. I have to say my career has come a long way. These couple experiences now led me to starting a startup in the crypto and Web3 space. So I'm working with, a group of close friends as well as, some advisors and extended partners in terms of the particular project that we're working on. And I would say, I have felt that the power of communication so deeply in this working environment because the team is smaller and the relationship is tighter. In this case, actually, how you communicate, how you work with each other plays a bigger part because if you alienate a particular person, you would lose a very strong contribution to your small project, given how little resources you have. And I actually treasure all the things I learned throughout my career through financial services, through consulting, all the communication skills that I accumulated, and apply this and really respect all the people that I work with, and getting that back is just such a breeze now that I'm working in this scenario, and I am just feel I'm blessed as well as very happy with some of the things that I was able to take away from my previous positions.
Oh, I am so proud of you for striking it off on your own. And, folks, I know you might be thinking you're in a bigger organization. There's no reason you can't bring the intimacy, the camaraderie of the smaller team to the bigger settings. And I'm really hearing this counting on each other, valuing each other. And I'm really glad that you're in that space, Ivan, because you're a star. That's spectacular.
And one more thing, in addition to all the things I learned, obviously, Say It Skillfully has been really helpful. So just want to call that out.
I appreciate that. Listen, you're welcome back on the show anytime. I am cheering for you big time, and you're a part of the solution. I'm very proud of the progression, and I'm, that crypto Web3 space is just completely foreign to me. So maybe offline one of these days we can meet up and you can explain it to me. That'll be a real.
Of course, happy to.
Fabulous. You take good care, Ivan. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
You too. Ciao, ciao. Oh, spectacular. Okay. Wow. We're heading over to the Pacific Northwest, gorgeous part of the United States. And I am thrilled to welcome Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Hi, Molly. Great.
Well, I appreciate your making time to join me. And what situation or conversation is on your mind?
Well, I work for an international startup, so we're mostly remote. I've been hearing a theme in a lot of podcasts lately. And so I'm going to give a little context, but essentially we're going from a smaller team. I think I was employee number 13, and now we're at 50. And so we have traditionally been a very transparent company, and it's been harder as we grow. And to add another layer on that for me personally, I am informally overseeing some non-direct reports. And it's interesting because I'm fairly good at transparency, I would say, especially as it comes to our customers and senior leadership. And but I'm actually struggling to be super transparent with those who I'm kind of informally managing, kind of through a matrix. It's hard, and I get really hesitant when it comes to tough conversations because I don't know how well supported they are for me to, lay on the truth. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting situation because I'm not in control of the direct management of them, but I want them to feel safe. So I'm kind of wondering what's the best way to approach situations where I am senior and I do have tools that could help them, and action does need to be taken. I try to assess everything, whether it's like a learning opportunity where people can flail a little and figure it out on their own. And then also whether it's like, nope, the fire is burning and we've got to jump in and make some moves. So I think I waffle between being a little apologetic when I bring things up, and being a little too nice, or I'm like, okay, we're going full on like black and white. This is what's going on. And I know that's probably not appreciated because they're not sure what to expect. So I feel like this is my learning space personally, and I'd love to get some tips on maybe how to improve that or approach those.
I love it. And I can empathize with it, and woohoo that you're growing the startup and you know, early on. So that's a real privilege. And I want you to know that, you know, you can't buy that, right? The people who've been along the journey. And obviously as organizations grow, they have to change and they have to adapt, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if transparency and open communication had been a hallmark earlier on, Elizabeth, that's certainly something that can serve you going forward. And just know that this may be something that, because of your privilege of being early on, you actually can raise it in a way that others don't have the context or the seniority. Not to make more pressure on you, right? But it does give you hopefully a bit of an incentive, because you can really, as to the previous caller, you can really help serve the whole, if that makes sense, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I hear this waffling
Yes.
about apologetics. So just say more to our listeners. Like, what does that look like? What's going on for you when you're waffling? Because I can imagine waffling, Elizabeth, is not, you know.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. And sometimes it comes across as passive aggressive, and I hate things that are passive aggressive. So I think what it comes down to is that I will sometimes say, in order to not be like, you have to do this. So for example, something went wrong with the customer. One of my colleagues was sick, didn't tell anybody. And then we lost a couple of weeks and the customer was really upset. And so everyone is so busy. I'm the one here in the US that kind of sees what's happening on the ground, since we have people all over the world. And so it was kind of up to me to give that honest feedback of like, look, it's okay that you're sick, but we also need to get you to talk to people when you can't handle things at the moment, and we can jump in. But how it came out was, do you think we could do this in the future? Which it's not about it's about this person that I'm talking to, and he's young and he's learning. And so I think it's just that wording around it.
Yeah,
Where it comes out like, oh, we're in this together, but it's like, we're sort of in this together because I'm here to support you, but you're the one who has to actually make the change, and I can't, help you.
Yeah.
Okay. Say like, I'm here for you.
That's good. I love this. This is a really great call out. There's like, sometimes there's we and sometimes there's you. And
yeah.
So let's not conflate those two. So I think I appreciate the context of a younger employee, newer in. So I think there's a bit of the Elizabeth is a more senior leader person and a mentor, right? So let's just say, Jonathan, are you feeling better?
Yes.
Yeah, feeling better. Okay, great. Jonathan, can we debrief what happened, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Okay, yes. Okay, Jonathan. So I have a question for you. When you were feeling sick, right? Did you mention that to anybody? To you're just asking. Mm-hmm. Ooh, okay. So one of the things, first of all, we care deeply about our employees here. So we're not trying to meddle into private affairs, but we do want to know if people aren't feeling their best, so that, if we can be supportive, we can be supportive, right? He's like, okay, great. I really appreciate how everyone cares. Okay. So now the other thing I have to be upfront with you, Jonathan, is because you were sick, were you able to do everything you were supposed to be doing, right? Well, I didn't exactly. Okay. So Jonathan, I want you to put yourself in and just pick whoever teammates, so-and-so and so-and-so's shoes. What do you think happened for them? Pause. Whatever. So he may know, he say, well, so Jonathan, imagine, let's just say you're relying on Samantha for something and that doesn't happen. And what happens for you? And so what happens is you think this is intuitively obvious. It obviously isn't intuitively obvious, or he would have said something. So now what you're coaching him to do is kind of see the mess he created. And that typically, wow, I can see. So, okay, so now what are you taking away? What's the learning? What are you going to change? And see what he says. Now, he may say, well, I'm just going to get sick and not telling myself, okay, wait a second, right? But hopefully he says, okay, so I'm not trying to make you feel bad. It is my job to help you make new mistakes. So are we clear that that mistake is never going to happen again? Pause. How's that landing?
I love that. I think it's that last part in particular about I'm here to help you make new mistakes is really helpful, because we want people to be able to fail and move forward, as long as it's not repeated. And so.
Yeah. And you can say that with emphasis. Hey, we have, and folks know Gary Ridge is a friend of mine, former CEO, now chairman of the board for WD-40. And he's like, we don't have mistakes. We have learning moments, and they are essential to their culture. Learning moment, okay, because we all want to make, if we're only growing if we're making mistakes. If your whole day is like perfect, then maybe not pushing it enough. So it's okay if we're making the right mistakes. We obviously don't want to make the catastrophic mistakes. So there is a distinction. So we just need to make sure we're pushing it. And so I think that notion of, and if we're going to make a wrong decision, let's fail fast with it. Let's correct it. That's fine. And again, a lot of it, and being a senior person, Elizabeth, your attitude around it, we've been doing this for 2 weeks. Love the fact that we took a bet on it. I think it's time to call it quits. Let's change, right? That's fine.
Right.
There's no waffling. We didn't have the data we have. Now we have 10, 20, 12, whatever, however many days of data. Were we good? I think it's time to call it a loss and let's move on. Fine.
No, I love that. It also, I think it's appropriate to, I think another thing that's a little difficult is that we're all pretty young in the startup. So it's like, we've got a little bit of a hierarchy, but we're all kind of peers/managers. And so it gets a little, I like that it takes out the I have all this experience, or questioning my experience, and just says like, hey, we're here to help each other move forward quickly, and just make it very factual instead of what's going on here.
Yeah, I love that. And so to those folks, this is transparency. Folks, we're all pretty young here. We can add all our ages up and it doesn't equal X, right? So let's just call a spade in case anyone is getting a little bit, ahead of themselves. I think that's really super. Now, that also might be, hey, is there an opportunity? Do we need to reach out to someone who maybe has 20 more years experience to get some thoughts on that, right? That can be, think of that as your collective intelligence. If you don't know, that's okay. But not finding out may not be okay. You might say, well, we can all admit we don't really know the right answer, but who can we talk to? How do we solve it, right? So I just want to segue, because you mentioned a little bit about the, as you're growing and it's maybe not as easy to be as transparent. Anything there that we might talk about that makes it easier for you? Because that, I do find in big organizations, flow of communications can be challenging. 50 is still not some enormous number. You can hug everybody, right? Technically, if they were around. So your thoughts on what makes it challenging, and is there something Elizabeth can do to grease the skids?
Yeah, so I've worked in both a corporate setting and this startup setting. And I think at the beginning of the startup, it was almost like, it felt kind of like a really innovative small team that I would find at another workplace. And now that we've grown, I think, as opposed to me working directly with, 8 to 10 people and spending X amount of hours with them every week, I have some people who I only speak to maybe 5 minutes every other week. And it's harder to build trust with people who you don't work with frequently. And so I think that's what we're finding across the board. And then also without, the traditional manager resources and stuff, we're just kind of like flying by the seat of our pants. And so we knew it was a safe space before, but it's kind of, I always kind of wonder, like, do the people who are joining the company get that same impression?
Yeah. Okay. I know we're closing in, but I want to give a few thoughts and we can cover this at a future time. This is super important. The trust thing is not to be assumed. You say, well, we are trustworthy, but new people, that's a hard thing. So as you bring new people in, Elizabeth, that one-on-one time, and maybe it's monthly, you do something, and listeners have heard me say, you can do something that share a little bit of our life journeys, give people a chance to really get to know folks, spend an hour over lunch, and talking about some of the things that are hard, right? So part of that is, hey, share a little bit about yourself and share one thing that's a struggle for you. And the leader goes last, but you set the space and saying one of the key values here is that we want to have full trust, which means we can say the tough stuff. We can make mistakes, right? And we will, respect each other and move forward. And that's something you want to be intentional about. And part of it is also, sometimes we move really fast. If you feel like it's not safe or you feel like you can't speak up, what we need you to do is to say something. Because the last thing you want is folks having, kind of out at the fringe, having a different experience than the folks at a home office or that are more senior would know, right? And that's something to be really explicit in, and asking folks that notion of sharing struggles, hearing the tough stuff, the not so pretty, still respecting and loving someone for it is the best way for people to realize that, hey, I really matter here. So that one we can talk about more, but that's not something to kind of like wish telepathically. That's something you need to put into the ether and have ultimate transparency. Okay, so we'll wrap. Let me ask you, we talked about a lot, Elizabeth, do you have a top takeaway from our chat?
Yes, I think to not be wishy-washy, and you had a couple of sound bites there that I'd love to try, and then definitely want to set up some time to talk about the hard stuff with some of the new members of our team. I think that's a great idea. Can't just wait for it to happen.
That's right. I love it. Lead yourself first, and then you lead others. And there's zero doubt in my mind that you're all better for that. So I want to thank you for being a big part of the solution. I'm cheering for you in a big way. And obviously, any way I can help, I'm here for you. You take good care.
All right. Thanks, Molly.
Ciao, ciao. Okay, folks, spectacular. Okay, my thought for the week, a quote I got on my Calm app: external circumstances are fragile and we rarely have control over them, but your internal state is where you can take charge. And that is a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Reflect on your top takeaways. And no, I'm cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said so that you and those around you have a shared reality, essential to make the best decisions, execute with speed, and achieve outstanding outcomes at work and in life.
Homelessness is a problem that's more costly to ignore than solve. The U.S. spends $12 billion a year responding, but resources alone aren't enough. I'd like you to know there are cities and counties proving what does work. Partnering with Community Solutions, a nonprofit I'm on the board of, more than 80 communities around the country are succeeding in ending homelessness, beginning with chronic and veteran homelessness. They convene local leaders around data and are changing how they work and spend their resources, so homelessness becomes rare. More than half have already reduced the number of people experiencing chronic and veteran homelessness, with commitment to get to zero. What can you do? Visit www.built40.org and see whether your community is engaged. Contact your mayor and ask, do you know the number of people experiencing homelessness in real time? Do you know every homeless person by name? What are you doing to drive measurable reductions in homelessness? Please challenge the fiction that says homelessness is an intractable problem.
Thanks for listening to Say It Skillfully with host Molly Chang. Join us again for more ways to say it skillfully next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Channel. Follow Molly on LinkedIn and Twitter. Check out sayitskillfully.com and sign up so you don't miss her latest 90-second video. And please, be part of the solution. Kindly tell others about this program so they say it skillfully too.